Joining us now is Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman, thank you for taking the time. As always, help me understand, Congressman, what is going on with FISA. I know there was like this procedural vote or a vote to get it to debate. We believe, and I know you agree, that the FBI, they need to get a warrant. This unlimited FISA thing is a broken system. Walk us through it, please.
Yeah, so look, there are two parts to FISA. There's the one part where you got the court, and that part was certainly abused relative to spying on President Trump's campaign and all the things that we know that come up with Strzok and Page and all the stuff that we learned about a few years ago. There's the other part of FISA, which is the 702 database, and this is where they surveil foreigners. They collect all this information, but inevitably pick up lots of Americans in this, what I call this giant haystack of information in that data. And there are hundreds of thousands of searches done on that database each year on Americans using your phone number, your name, or your email address. And what we're saying is the FBI that spied on a presidential campaign, the FBI that said if you're a parent at a school board meeting, you need to be investigated, the FBI that said if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist, and maybe most important, Charlie, the FBI that said we're going to retaliate against and did retaliate against whistleblowers who came and talked to our committee about those issues. We don't think that FBI should be able to police themselves, particularly with all those abuses. So we're saying you got to do what our Constitution and our great system has done for 200 plus years. You got to go get a warrant. You can't just let the executive branch do what they want. The way it works in our country is you want to search American citizens' stuff, you got to go to a separate and equal branch of government and get a warrant. And that's what our amendment would require. Frankly, it was part of the base text that came out of the Judiciary Committee 35-2. It included the warrant in the text. Now on the floor, you have a base text that doesn't include the warrant. We're trying to add that back in. And to me, that is the fundamental fight. And if it doesn't get back in the bill, I ain't voting for the bill, because I think we have to have this fundamental constitutional protection that has served our country so well for so long.
So help me understand, because there was a split, and I'm getting kind of two different versions of the story from people that I really respect, like you and other members that tried to block this yesterday. What was the attempt to block yesterday by Eli Crane and Matt Gaetz, where they said they wanted to kill the renewal? So walk me through that.
I think there was a frustration with what they saw as like the pressure and the push against the amendment I just described. And there was a frustration with that. There was also another amendment that we had in the bill that came out of the committee that wasn't part of the rule package and is not being allowed to be offered to the base text as an amendment. I think there was some concern about that. And then, frankly, I think there was some concern about the length of time for this reauthorization for a 5-year time frame. So I think those were the concerns that the people voted against the rule. I voted for the rule because I am focused on one thing, winning this warrant requirement. This, to me, is the most important thing. It is a hallmark of our system. And they can say whatever they want. The people on the other side say, oh, no, this is a U.S. person query. Well, I tell folks, query is a fancy name for search. And you're not allowed under our system to just search Americans' information without first getting a warrant from a separate and equal branch of the government, the judicial branch. So particularly, here's the other thing, Charlie. The Inspector General reported that 278,000 times the FBI didn't follow their own rules and they illegally searched, didn't follow the procedures in place at the FBI, and they searched this database on American citizens. So if the FBI, they didn't follow their rules before, if you just put new regulations and requirements on them, are they really going to follow them now? I don't think so. That's why, again, we think you need this warrant requirement.
So can you talk about the bipartisan element here? Because it seems as if there are some Democrats that are willing to play ball on this. Do you anticipate that this could be some bipartisan unity to actually fix FISA? And what are the legislative prospects? I mean, we kind of see a strange coalition, Freedom Caucus plus Squad, and then more, let's just say, moderate uniparty members in both parties. Walk us through the dynamics here.
No, it's the dynamics are there because there's been abuses on both sides. That 278,000 number I gave you of illegal queries that were done to the database by the FBI, those included people who were at the January 6th protest. Those included people who were part of Black Lives Matter in the summer of 2020 at the protests and riots around the country there, too. So there were 19,000 donors to a congressional campaign that were illegally searched. So that's why you have the bipartisan element, and that's why it came out of the committee. You know our committee chart. It's pretty partisan in the Judiciary Committee, but this bill came out of the committee with a 35-2 vote. You had Jerry Nadler and Jim Jordan on the same page because we understand that the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Constitution all need to be protected. These are fundamental liberties. So here's the one question they won't answer too. Because in our warrant requirement, we have an exception. If there's an emergency situation, if there's an imminent threat to the security of our country, you can proceed with the search of the database. But short of that, you got to go get a warrant. And we know that, again, there's a couple 100,000 times a year that they search this database on U.S. persons. So I asked the question, I said, how many of those several 100,000 searches aren't covered under the exception in our warrant requirement amendment? And no one will give me an answer, which should scare us, because if it's a big number, that should really frighten us. And if it's a small number, what's the big deal? If it's just a few that aren't in this emergency situation, what's the big deal? But no one will answer that fundamental question, which again, I think raises the concern why we really need it in the first place.
I might have missed this, Congressman, in all the macro discussion I've had with members, but a question we're getting from our audience: what is the time horizon here? Wouldn't it be smart to say, okay, we don't trust you at all. Here's these 10 reforms. You guys get 6 months and then come back again. This 10-year horizon, it is a gift to the intelligence and the administrative state. What are we talking about as far as timing?
That right now, what's being proposed is to take it from a 5-year reauthorization of the 702 program that we've been talking about to a simple to a shorter 2-year time or 2-year reauthorization time period. I think that's fine. What I care most, but again, the warrant requirement is the most important. Even with a 2-year reauthorization, if the warrant requirement's not on it, I ain't voting for it. I'm not going to pass that, because I think that is, again, I can't stress it enough. I know you understand it. Your audience understands it. You have the law enforcement, the government would love to just be able to go look through your stuff. But that's not how we operate in this country. And it started right from the beginning when they said you shouldn't be able to search Americans' papers and their homes. You shouldn't be able to do that without going to a separate branch of government and showing probable cause for a warrant. That is the protection we've always had in this country. We think it most definitely should apply here. And the FBI, particularly in light of their history, the context we're in now, particularly we need it now.
So Congressman, your colleagues that are pushing for this with almost no alterations, no reforms, I got to be honest, what is their contention here? It is remarkable to me that they say, well, everything's fine. We give the FBI exactly what they want. What is their argument?
Yeah, you'll hear that this would slow things down, and by slowing things down, we may not be able to stop a terrorist threat or whatever. But I sat in the SCIF for 3.5 hours with the Intelligence Committee members, with the Speaker of the House and Judiciary Committee members, and people from the intelligence agencies. We sat down there in the SCIF, and they gave us the presentation. And I'll be honest, nothing in that presentation, nothing in that discussion for 3.5 hours told me that we should move away from what's always happened in this country. You're going to look at Americans' information, you got to get a warrant. You got to have a probable cause reason for doing so. So we hear that from some people. There are some people who are in the intelligence community, even in the Trump administration, who say, no, you don't want to go with this warrant requirement. And then there are others who say, yeah, you do. So, look, I get it, and there's this tension there. But it seems to me when there's tension, you err on the side of enforcement, respecting the Constitution and doing what the Constitution has always done, protect Americans' liberties by getting a warrant.
Well, and then just also, our base feels, I know you do too, Congressman, is that the abuse of FISA is never held accountable. People don't go to jail.
Yeah.
And we don't even know the full extent of all the abuse. Regardless of people's opinion of Snowden, he did reveal that there was mass lying and abuses by the national security apparatus and national security state. So if you were to make a prediction, which is always a dangerous thing in politics, what do you think we end up with? Do we end up with some serious reform, something meaningful?
I think there's some some good reform in the base tax, but not enough to get the vote without the warrant for me, and I think for a lot of my colleagues. I do feel like every time there's been a debate on this internally and externally, our side is picking up votes. Our side meaning the pro-warrant requirement being in the legislation. So I want to get this debate. I want to win this debate. I want to win this amendment and send it to the Senate, and then encourage the Senate to keep it in the bill. I think that's the most important. Some of the reforms that are in there enhance the penalties for people who violate the other part of FISA, like what we had with Strzok and Page and the Christopher Steele and dossier and all the stuff they did to President Trump's campaign. But again, I don't think that's enough without the warrant requirement in the 702 program to, as I said now several times, to protect our fundamental liberties like we're supposed to under our Constitution.
Congressman, I want to encourage you to really hold the line on this. Our audience is really wanting a win, and I think this one is winnable. We have Democrats that are willing to play ball on this, and just for the colleagues that say, oh, it's going to slow down the process, it's not about, the FBI doesn't care about speed. They care about accountability, and they don't want to have to go in front of a judge to explain themselves. Too bad. We have a Fourth Amendment for a reason. I know you agree. Congressman, please keep fighting. Thank you.
We will. You too. Keep it up. Thanks.
Thank you.